Hey everyone, and welcome to another Marks & Crafts figurine review. Today we're going to be reviewing another Portrait of Pirates from the One Piece series, and this one is the Portrait of Pirates Warriors Alliance Monkey D. Luffy, or Luffytaro. And while I am still very behind in One Piece, I don't want to be behind on the figures, because catching up as far as the collector part of me is concerned last year was frustrating and annoying. And there are still a lot of figures that I want to collect, and a lot of things I want to do that involve the franchise and the franchise's past, but it's annoying playing catch-up, at least to a certain degree. I don't mind reading the manga, that's my favourite part of it, but a lot of the merchandise and things surrounding it are a bit of a pain, and that comes a lot to my own personality and my sort of personal FOMO for collectibles and things like that. 100% a me problem, and it's annoying to me. I'm trying to catch up as well as future-proof myself at the same time, which is why we have this Luffy right here. So let's pop him out of the box. So you can see this is Wano Luffy, or Luffytaro, and this is a re-release of the original Portrait of Pirates, Warriors Alliance Luffytaro, and I'm glad that they've been doing re-releases, because aftermarket on Portrait of Pirates is not fun by any stretch of the word, and so I'm glad that they are re-releasing practically all of them, as well as doing new releases like the Yamato that I've previously looked at. But they've done re-release of Luffy, re-release of Nami, re-release of Chopper, they're doing a re-release of Zoro, and I think they might be doing the Sanji, I'm not 100% sure. I'd love if they did everyone in Wano Portrait of Pirates, but from my understanding, Portrait of Pirates very rarely ever completes a set of the Straw Hats, which is why Sailing Again Frankie and Sailing Again Jinbei are frustrating. But anyway, let's have a closer look at the box. You can see there's a window into the figure itself, there's some nice promo art on the front, there's the official Toei official product sticker, there's all the regular branding, Portrait of Pirates, Warriors Alliance, POP, Excellent Model, Mega House, Bandai Namco. See more promo images on the side, and more on the back, and one more on the side here. On the top of the box, we get a nice one as well. And yeah, it's just a really cool aesthetic. I really like the colors and the very Japanese-inspired aesthetic. It just looks good. But let's open it up so we can have a better look at the figure itself. Alright, so after an almost embarrassing amount of trial and error trying to get this little like twig or whatever in Luffy's mouth, I finally set him up. It was probably like 5 solid minutes of me trying to assemble this. Generally, assembly is quite easy. The little straw thing comes separate, the katana comes separate, and the base comes separate, and we'll get to the base later. And then everything else is in one piece. The straw hat is removable, but it is also sort of loose. It's got like a bit of foam holding it onto his back, so it doesn't do any paint transferring or anything like that. But I've just left it on. I think it looks better that way. It's always an option, but Luffy should never really go anywhere without his straw hat. So yeah, it's just going to stay there. But yeah, this is the Luffytaro Portrait of Pirates out of the box, and I've said it with the Yamato, and I'll say it again with the Luffy. There is a very noticeable difference between prize figures and scale figures, especially One Piece. There's just so much more detail, shading, and effort put into these, and it's pretty incredible. Coloring is a lot more serious and sort of a little more muted than I would think. Like, the color palette's not as bright and cartoony as I normally associate with One Piece, but I think that the more serious color tone matches the darker shading that they use quite well. You can see just how good he looks in this pose. The sculpt is very nice. I know that this is a pretty traditional sort of like Japanese ready pose type thing. I think it's used for like kabuki plays or something like that, but it's a very traditional pose that you see quite often with sort of Japanese theatre, I think, but you also just see it used a lot in anime anyway. But you can see the sculpt is just fantastic. All of Luffy's muscle detail is very good. His hair's very nicely sculpted. The hat looks fantastic. His robe being partially removed, it looks good as well. It's blowing in the wind, as well as the lower part looks good. I love this sort of patchwork detail, and it's all textured. Looks very, very good. I like how it turned out. The base is a traditional sort of Portrait of Pirates hexagon. Portrait of Pirates always uses the hexagon. I know that I give Pop-Up Parade a lot of crap for using the hexagon base, but the octagon, I don't know if I called it an octagon or a hexagon, but the octagon for the Portrait of Pirates is nice because it's a consistent thing with the brand, and usually they make them quite nice and noticeably collectible. The problem that I have with Pop-Up Parade is they usually feel like an afterthought. At least from what I've seen of the Portrait of Pirates ones, they tend to give it a little more thought in terms of color matching, detail, as well as making it seem like an actual collector's item. Like the Yamato didn't even have one because it's a maximum figure, and this one has got a nice little aesthetic thing going on with it. I know there are companies that make just acrylic stands for these, and they take up a lot less space, which is cool as well. But I'll just keep it with the octagon. But yeah, the sculpt is pretty damn good. We'll take a closer look at Luffy's face. They've definitely captured his character. It's a sort of cheeky, ready grin. So it's serious Luffy, but it's still got the heart of Luffy in him. I don't think his eyes are too small. I think it's just right. His smile is good as well, even though he's biting on this, it's still very recognizable as a Luffy smile. And the hairstyle is very good. I know that he changes hairstyle when he does the Luffytaro thing, but it's mainly the traditional Luffy look. You just add that, and that's pretty damn good. He's got a scar on his chest, and it looks fantastic. There's some beautiful muscle shading throughout all of this. And the straw hat is also very well detailed. It's got some texture on it. It's got the 3 scars that Buggy left at the start of the series, and it's got a nice wash over it. It's also not a perfect circle, which I think is also very cool, because it sort of gives it a little more realism that way. The katana is very well detailed. I'm sure there's a story reason for why Luffy's got a katana, but that's not for me to know, at least not now. And the sheath is also very, very well detailed. And again, the robe that he's got, very well textured, very well detailed. I love the paint apps on it, and it looks like an actual bit of patchwork, which is very cool. So paint, very good as well. The skin tone's nice, the shading's fantastic, the katana looks good, the sheath looks good, the robe looks good. How I said it's like washed out. This is probably the brightest part of the coloring on his robe. Just these light parts here, everything else is dark shaded, and it gives an effect of light sort of being cast from this direction downwards. It's quite nice. His feet are also painted with like a detail wash. They look pretty grotty, which I think makes sense because he's always wearing sandals, and even then sometimes barefoot. So it fits him quite well. I love the detail work, love the colors, the sculpt is fantastic, and it's just really is a cut above most other One Piece figures that I've seen or own. And that's just comes with the territory of having scales and having modern scales as well, because modern scale figures have really stepped up in the last couple of years. But yeah, it's sometimes hard to capture Luffy's likeness, and I think they've nailed it here. I'm keen to see where Wano goes when I finally catch up to it, but I like this sort of like outside viewing in that I've got currently going, where I can see these outfits and how the characters have grown and everything like that. So I think that's cool, and I really like the dynamic pose on this. It's a really nice, really solid Luffy. Highly recommend it to anyone who's interested in it. If you like Luffy from every generation for like pre-time skip, post-time skip, and Wano. For Portrait of Pirates, I know pre-time skip's a little sketchy because it was when figures weren't nearly as good, but post-time skip there's quite a bit to choose from, but I quite like this one, especially how I mentioned that modern figures have gotten way better. And before we wrap things up, we'll do a quick size comparison. So the Portrait of Pirates figures aren't necessarily in scale with anything, but they hover around 1/8 scale. Here's Luffy next to the high-grade Gundam Ariel, which is around the size of a Figma. He is next to Pop-Up Parade Chun-Li, which is around 1/10 scale. They are also non-scale figures, but they are always smaller and not nearly as professionally done. And here's Luffy next to the SH Figuarts Anya Forger, and SH Figuarts are around 1/12 scale, and Anya's just a tiny, tiny child. But yeah, that's pretty much it. It's a very good figure, highly recommend it. It's fantastic, can't wait to catch up to One Piece to a degree where I can discuss it almost on a weekly basis, even though I probably won't do weekly videos when I catch up. But I think it'd be very cool to discuss it and enjoy it and uncover the secrets along with everyone else. But I think it's cool in the meantime, just playing catch up slowly and uncovering it literally one piece a day. But yeah, I hope you enjoyed that video, and I will see you all next time.